The auditorium buzzed with excitement, a sea of proud families filling every row. Balloons bobbed above the crowd, camera flashes painted the air, and the names of graduating cadets echoed one after another. But in the far corner, a tall black man sat quietly, his broad shoulders held with a soldier's composure. His uniform wasn't present, he didn't need it. Every line on his face told the story of a Marine who had bled for his country, who had carried men on his back through fire, and who had returned home with honor. Tonight, however, he wasn't Sergeant Marcus Hale, U.S. Marine. He was just a father, watching his only son graduate from the Naval Academy. Marcus had arrived early, his heart swelling with pride as he spotted his son, Daniel, standing among the ranks in crisp white. He remembered the years of sacrifice, the deployments that had kept him away during birthdays, the moments stolen by duty. This graduation wasn't just Daniel's victory, it was theirs. But then, the sound of heavy boots broke his thoughts. Two security guards moved toward him with stern faces. "Sir," one said, "we need you to step outside." Marcus frowned, confused. "Step outside? My son is graduating today." The second guard's tone sharpened. "We've had complaints. This section is reserved. You'll have to leave." Gasps rippled from nearby families, eyes turning toward the lone Marine. Marcus rose slowly, towering, his jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. Years of discipline taught him restraint. Yet inside, a storm raged. And as he stood there, humiliation burning through him, 6 figures in dress whites rose silently from the front rows. Their footsteps thundered like a drumbeat. The SEALs had noticed. The room fell strangely quiet as the 6 SEALs moved in unison. Their medals glinted under the auditorium lights, their steps heavy with a kind of authority that needed no introduction. Parents whispered, some leaning over to ask who they were, but every Navy man in the hall already knew, these were legends. Marcus froze for a moment, unsure whether to stay or walk. His fists curled slightly at his sides, though his expression remained calm. Discipline was the armor he had worn his whole life. But deep down, shame cut deeper than any battlefield wound. He thought of Daniel, his son standing proud among the cadets. What would it look like if his father was dragged out during the most important moment of his life? "Is there a problem here?" one of the SEALs asked, his voice carrying across the rows like a command. The guard stiffened, suddenly cautious. "We were told, this man doesn't belong in this section," one muttered, glancing nervously between Marcus and the imposing sailors. A silence hung in the air, thick with tension. Marcus could feel hundreds of eyes on him, some filled with judgment, others with sympathy. The lead SEAL turned, his jaw tight. "This man," he said slowly, "belongs anywhere he wants to sit. You don't ask a Marine who's bled for this flag to leave his son's graduation." Murmurs spread instantly, the crowd shifting, whispers rolling like waves. The guards hesitated, caught between orders and the unspoken authority of warriors who had faced death itself. Marcus lowered his gaze, breathing deeply, trying to stay composed. But inside, something cracked open, years of silence, of being overlooked, of being underestimated. And then, Daniel's name echoed across the hall. "Midshipman Daniel Hale." The announcer's voice rang out, crisp and commanding. The entire auditorium erupted in applause as Marcus's son marched across the stage, posture perfect, eyes forward. Pride swelled in Marcus's chest, though the sting of what had just happened lingered like a bruise on his spirit. Daniel's eyes searched the crowd for a split second. He spotted his father, standing, not seated, flanked by 2 guards and shadowed by 6 SEALs who had risen in his defense. Confusion flickered in his gaze, quickly replaced by something harder, sharper. Determination. The applause faded as Daniel received his diploma, but he didn't walk off like the others. Instead, he stopped at center stage, his voice steady but loud enough to carry. "Before I take this diploma," he said, "I need to acknowledge someone." The crowd stilled, curious. Even the superintendent frowned, unsure of what was happening. Daniel raised his hand, pointing toward Marcus. That man standing there, he is my father. A Marine who has given more to this country than anyone in this room can measure. If he is not welcome here, then neither am I. Gasps rippled through the auditorium. Cameras clicked furiously, parents exchanged glances, and the guards shifted uncomfortably. Marcus's breath caught in his chest, pride and pain colliding. He had taught his son to stand tall, to fight with honor, but he had never expected to be defended so openly. The 6 SEALs moved closer, their presence an unspoken shield around him. One placed a firm hand on Marcus's shoulder. "He's right," the SEAL said, his voice cutting through the silence. And in that moment, the graduation was no longer about tradition. It was about truth. The superintendent rose from his seat on stage, his expression tight, as if the weight of the entire room pressed on him. He adjusted his uniform, trying to regain control of the ceremony. "Midshipman Hale," he said sternly, "this is highly irregular. Please return to your place so we may proceed." But Daniel didn't move. His voice rang clear, firm as steel. "With all due respect, sir, I will not move until my father is treated with the dignity he has earned." The words struck like thunder. Families murmured, some clapping softly, others gasping at the audacity of a young cadet challenging authority in such a sacred hall. Yet behind that courage was truth, undeniable and raw. The guards glanced nervously at each other, clearly outmatched by the presence of 6 Navy SEALs standing like sentinels beside Marcus. The lead SEAL stepped forward, his ribbons gleaming. "The young man's right," he said. "This Marine doesn't need to prove who he is. We've fought beside men like him, bled with them, survived because of them. If there's no place for him here, then there's no place for any of us." The crowd erupted, cheers mixed with shouts, a wave of emotion crashing over the ceremony. Some parents rose to their feet in support, clapping louder, while others remained frozen in disapproval. Marcus stood still, his chest rising slowly, eyes glistening though he fought to keep them steady. He had endured war, racism, and silence, but nothing pierced him deeper than seeing his son and these warriors take a stand for him. The superintendent looked out at the swelling crowd, realizing control was slipping from his hands. And then, something unexpected happened, an elderly man in the front row began to rise. The elderly man straightened his posture, his cane tapping lightly against the floor as he rose. His hair was silver, his frame lean, but his uniform, though worn with age, still commanded silence. Rows of ribbons lined his chest, and the hall recognized instantly, a decorated admiral. Every whisper died. The admiral's voice was calm but carried the weight of decades. "I know that man," he said, pointing toward Marcus. "Sergeant Hale saved lives overseas when others would have fled. Men like him carried this nation through its darkest nights. If this hall cannot honor him, then this hall dishonors all of us." The words struck like a gavel. The superintendent's jaw tightened, but he could not speak over the thunder of applause that erupted from the crowd. Parents, cadets, even officers stood to their feet, clapping, cheering, their voices echoing through the auditorium like a storm. The guards stepped back instantly, their authority dissolving. The SEALs remained at Marcus's side, but now they were no longer just protectors, they were witnesses to a turning tide. Daniel descended the stage, diploma in hand, and marched directly to his father. He placed it in Marcus's hands. "This belongs to you as much as it does to me," he said, voice trembling with pride. Marcus's composure finally broke. His eyes filled as he embraced his son, the weight of humiliation replaced with honor. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a black man questioned in his own country, but as a Marine, a father, and a hero. The hall roared, not for tradition, but for truth. And that night, no one would forget the Marine who stood tall, and the 6 SEALs who silenced the room.